Hi, my name is Patty, and we're going to read a story today called Curious George Rides a Bike. Ooh, do you ride a bike? You do? Well, then you might like this story. Curious George Rides a Bike is by H.A. Ray. This is George. He lived with his friend, the man with the yellow hat. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. This morning, George was curious the moment he woke up because he knew it was a special day. He looks excited to get up. At breakfast, George's friend said, "Today we are going to celebrate." Here he is at breakfast. Let's see. We are going to celebrate. Today we are going to celebrate because just 3 years ago this day, I brought you home with me from the jungle. So tonight I'll take you to the animal show. But first, I have a surprise for you. Whoa, I wonder what the surprise is. He took George out to the yard where a big box was standing, and George was very curious. Wonder what's in that box. What do you think? I don't know. Make some guesses. Let's see what was in there. Out of the box came a bicycle. Oh my goodness, look at that. George was delighted. That's what he had always wanted. He knew how to ride a bicycle, but he had never had one of his own. Oh, look at that. "I must go now," said the man, "but I'll be back in time for the show. Be careful with your new bike and keep close to the house while I am gone." Okay. George could ride very well. He could even do all sorts of tricks. Monkeys are good at that, doing tricks. For instance, he could ride this way with both hands off the handlebars. There he is. Look at that. He could ride this way like a cowboy on a wild bronco. Look at that. And he could also ride backwards. But after a while, he got tired of doing tricks. There he is riding backwards. And he went out into the street. Uh-oh. Was he supposed to do that? No. His friend in the yellow hat said, "Stay home." The newsboy was just passing by with his bag full of newspapers. "It's a fine bike you have there," he said to George. "How would you like to help me deliver the papers?" He handed George the bag and told him to do one side of the street first and turn back and do the other side of the street. George was very proud as he rode off with the bag. Uh-oh, you think something's going to happen? Maybe. Let's see. He started to deliver papers on one side of the street as he had been told. And when he came to the last house, he saw a little river in the distance. George was curious. He wanted to know what the river was like. So instead of turning back to deliver the rest of the papers, he just went on. There he is throwing papers, giving them to all the people who are waiting to read about the news in their paper. And do you see the river in the distance? Yeah, I see it way back there. Oh my goodness. There was a lot to see at the river. A man was fishing from the bridge, a duck family was paddling downstream, and two boys were playing with their boats. George would have liked to stop and look at the boats, but he was afraid the boys might find out that he had not delivered all the papers. So he rode on. And while riding along, he kept thinking of those boats all the time. It would be such fun to have a boat. But how could he get one? He thought, and then he had an idea. Oh my goodness. He got off his bicycle. He took a newspaper out of his bag and he began to fold it. First, he folded down the corners like this. Okay. And there was his boat. Oh my goodness, I'm going to put this up here so you can see this. You may want to try this at home. Get your mom or dad to take a picture of this screen and you could make your own paper boat at home. That is such a cool idea. He kept folding until he had made a boat. Now the moment had come to launch the boat. Would it float? It did, so George decided to make some more boats. Finally, he had used up all the papers and had so many boats that he could not count them. He had a whole fleet of boats. Oh my goodness, look at that. Watching his fleet sailing down the river, George felt like an admiral. But watching his fleet, he forgot to watch where he was going. Uh-oh, what do you think's going to happen? Let's see. Looks like he has some little animal friends taking rides in the boats. Can you see them? I see ducks. You could count the ducks. I see frogs. Maybe squirrels. That's right, a butterfly. Looks like even maybe some ants. And a rabbit on the side. There it is. Yeah. Let's see what happens. Uh-oh, suddenly there was a terrible jolt. His bicycle hit a rock and George flew off the seat, head first. Oh no, that must have hurt. Luckily, George was not hurt, but the front wheel of the bicycle was all out of shape and the tire was blown out. Uh-oh, that's a problem, right? Wonder what he's going to do. Let's see. George tried to ride his bike, but of course it would not go. So he started crying and carrying it, but soon it got too heavy. George did not know what to do. His new bike was spoiled. The newspapers were gone. He wished he had listened to his friend and kept close to the house. Now he just stood there and he cried. Oh, poor George. Suddenly his face brightened. Why, he had forgotten that he could ride on one wheel. He tried it and it worked. Look at that, he figured it out. He had hardly started out again. There he goes, when he saw something. He saw something he had never seen before. Rolling toward him came an enormous tractor with a huge trailer behind it, and looking at the trailers were all sorts of animals. To George, this looked like a zoo on wheels. Oh my goodness, what do you think he's going to do when he sees that? Not sure. The tractor stopped, and two men jumped out. Well, well, said the men, a little monkey who can ride a bike, bronco fashion. We can use you in our animal show tonight. I'm the director of the show, and this is Bob. He can straighten your wheel and fix that flat tire in no time, and then we'll take you along to the place where the show is going to be. Oh, so look at there. They put the bicycle on top. So the three of them got into the cab, the front part of the truck, and drove off. Maybe you could play a fanfare while you ride your bike in the show, the director said. I have a bugle for you right here, and later on you'll get a green coat and a cap, just like Bob's. Oh, so he's going to dress up just like the man who leads the show. All right, let's see what happens next. On the showgrounds, everybody was busy getting ready. "I must do some work now," said the director. "Meanwhile, you can have a look around. You can get acquainted with the animals, but you must not feed them, especially the ostrich, because he will eat anything and might get very sick afterwards." So, can you find the ostrich? See if you can find it. So, is he supposed to feed the ostrich? No. Let's see what kinds of animals you see. You find the giraffe, rhinoceros. Ooh, the kangaroo is next to that ostrich you found. I see an elephant. Ooh, and a leopard. And is that a camel? And a hippo. And it looks like a seal. He even has his own swimming pool. And the men are doing all kinds of work. Yes. Cleaning the trailers. Some of them got on a ladder and went in to feed the seal. Do you see someone sweeping? Where is he? Carrying buckets of water, giving hay to the giraffe. Oh my goodness, so many jobs to be done. Let's see what happens next. Fortunately, George was curious. Would the ostrich really eat anything? He wouldn't eat a bugle, would he? So George went a little closer to the cage, and before he knew it, the ostrich had snatched a bugle right out of his hand and tried to swallow it. But the bugle was hard to swallow, even for an ostrich. It got stuck in its throat. Funny sounds started coming out of the bugle as the ostrich was struggling with it. All blue in the face, George became frightened. Oh my goodness. Fortunately, the men heard the noise and they came rushing to the cage and got the bugle out of the ostrich's throat just in time. Look at him pulling on that. Wow. The director was very angry with George. "We cannot use little monkeys who don't do as they are told," he said. "Of course, you cannot take part in the show now. We will have to send you home." George had to sit on a bench all by himself, and nobody even looked at him. He was terribly sorry for what he had done, but now it was too late. He had spoiled everything. Oh. Meanwhile, the ostrich, always hungry, had gotten hold of a string dangling near the cage. Uh-oh, looks like he's in for trouble again next to the little bear. As the ostrich nibbled at the door, the door opened and the baby bear got out. Oh no. He ran away as fast as he could and made straight for a high tree near the camp. Nobody had seen it but George, and George was not supposed to leave his bench. But this was an emergency, so he jumped up, grabbed the bugle, and blew as loud as he could. Then he rushed on his bicycle. The men had heard the alarm and thought at first that George had been naughty again. But when they saw the empty cage and the ostrich nibbling at the string, they knew what had happened. George raced to the tree. Oh my goodness, look at them. By now, the bear had climbed quite high, and this was dangerous because little bears can climb up a tree easily, but coming down is much harder. They may fall and they might get hurt. The men were so worried they did not know how to get him down safely, but George had a plan. With the bag over his shoulder, he went up the tree as fast as only a monkey can do. And when he reached the baby bear, what do you think he's going to do? Let's see. Oh, he put him in the bag and carefully let him down so that the men could safely catch him. Oh, look at that. Everybody cheered when George came down from the tree. "You are a brave little monkey," said the director. "You saved the bear's life. Now you'll get your coat back, and of course, you can ride your bike and play the bugle in the show." Aww. Finally, the show was on. The whole town had come to see it, and how surprised they were to discover George on his bike, right in the middle of it. The newsboy was there too, and also the man in the yellow hat. Oh, look at that. See if you can find your favorite animal. Which one's your favorite? My goodness, ostrich or bear? Or the monkey George, an elephant, the leopard, kangaroo and kangaroo's baby, a seal. I even see a puppy watching it. Oh my goodness, and it looks like somebody's coming with, I don't know what that is on a tray. Maybe a birthday cake? We'll see. Or lemonade. Everyone had been looking for George everywhere, and they were happy they found him. The newsboy was glad to have his bag again, and the people from the other side of the street, whose papers George made into boats, were not angry with him anymore. When the time had come for George to say goodbye, the director let him keep the coat and the cap and the bugle, and then George and his friend got into the car. Here they are. Put the bike in the back seat, huh? They got in the car, and guess where they went? They drove home. Yes. Thank you for listening today. The name of our story was Curious George Rides a Bike. Bye.